So, hello everyone. I hope you can hear me. Before starting the presentation, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Olivier Jourdan, and I'm a LabVIEW champion and a LabVIEW architect. I've been working with LabVIEW for 20 years now. And 2 years ago, I started my own company, Wovalab. We are an I partner and XML trusted advisor. And we are here to help people designing and developing LabVIEW application. And if you want to know more about us, feel free to reach out to us through our website or through LinkedIn. So today's presentation is about my journey from SVN to Git. And I'd like to thank Fabiola de la Cueva and Emilian Kia for reviewing this presentation. Thank you guys and girls for your time. Before, I don't know if you hear me. Cyril, can you?
We do, Olivier. At least I do hear.
Okay, thank you.
If people in the chat can write something, if you hear Olivier, that would be great. Thanks.
It's kind of weird to do the presentation alone before his computer. So thank you, Cyril, for your confirmation. Before starting the presentation, this is the usual our giants are female slide, and I want to make it a bit different from the usual one. As a father of a girl of 6, I really want to, as LabVIEW developer, we can help young girls to achieve their dream if they want to work in engineering, computing, science, etc. We need to help them to achieve their dream, and why not become our future giants? So probably if they work in computer science world, they will have to use SVN or Git. So let's get started with my presentation and the agenda. I divided my presentation in 4 main parts. Why I start this journey. Secondly, what was my trip, and where am I at today with Git or SVN usage. At the end, I will give you some recommendations and advice if you want to start this trip from SVN to Git. So before talking about why I start this trip, I want to give you some reminder, general reminder about version control system. You are probably used to hearing the word source code control instead of version control system, but it's the same. So for me, version control system has 4 main features. It records changes to the files over the time. It's like a time machine, and so you can revert any file back to a previous state. You can know when and who made changes to this file, to see where what's wrong here or there. And finally, it's probably one of the most useful feature of version control system. It allows you to collaborate with other developers and sharing file on the same project. 2 important notes about version control system. First, you must use it even if you are working alone, even if you are developing with LabVIEW. I know some people that can beat you if you are not using version control system. So SVN or Git or another one, use it. It can save your life. The second important note here is version control system is not a backup system. let's say you have a server with SVN on it. If this server crash and you are not able to have a backup of this, you are losing everything about your version control system. So don't forget that it's not a backup system. A second reminder I want to do is about LabVIEW particularity. 99% of the files we use on LabVIEW project are binary files, VI and CTL. And so if you have a conflict on this kind of file, you need to choose between files A or B, but you can't merge these files. And the other kind of file you can find in the LabVIEW project are XML files. LVProj, LVlib, LVClass are XML files. This kind of files can be merged by the version control system, but I'd like to draw your attention on auto-merging. It can be dangerous sometimes to let the system do the merging of this kind of file. So be aware of that. So why I choose to migrate from SVN to Git? There were objective motivation. There were features that do not exist in SVN. There were possibility to use services like GitLab or GitHub with Git, not with SVN. It's the same thing for continuous integration. Modern continuous integration tools rely mostly on Git, not on SVN. And the subjective motivation was my curiosity first. I really love to test new things, new tools. And also a feeling of a trend of adoption in the LabVIEW community, an adoption of Git instead of SVN. And 2 years ago, this probably was something not really clear in my mind about this adoption. So I try to know more about the usage of Git or SVN in our LabVIEW world. And 6 months ago, I created a poll because I was expecting to do this presentation during an I week, but you know that it was cancelled. So I created this poll and asked, the first question was, which version control system do you mostly use with LabVIEW? And it was 50-50. I take the opportunity to let you know that there is a poll currently, an event poll with the same question, so you can take time to reply this question. So 6 months ago, on 83 participants, it was 50-50 about SVN and Git. The second question I asked was, what will be your plan in the year to come about SVN or Git? And the interesting thing was, for Git user, every Git user wants to keep using Git, and none of them want to move from Git to SVN. And for SVN user, it was different, because more than an half of the SVN user wanted to move from SVN to Git. So there were really a trend to move from SVN to Git. And before starting my journey, I look at the risks, the possible risks to start this journey. And so, reading on the internet back in 2018, I could see some people saying that if I take the 4 main reasons to not moving to Git, it was Git is more complex than SVN. Git is not handling binary files correctly. Git needs to use command lines, and finally, Git forces you to merge. There were that risks, but I forge ahead and I start my journey. So how was my journey? First, when I started, I took my SVN daily routines and tried to find the equivalent command in Git. So in SVN, basically it was checkout to get the working copy, update to share my, to get the modification made by other developers, and commit to share the modification with the others. So the checkout in Git can be replaced by the clone. The update is done via a pull command, and the commit, we can find the same command, commit in Git. But if we look more in depth in this, there are some differences. First, for the commit command, you have your working copy, and you can see the changes, new files, the files changed, the files removed. And before committing, you need to add the changes you want to commit in the staging area. When the staging area has its files, you can commit and add the commit to the history. But you need to know that it's not enough to share your work with other colleagues. Why? Because SVN and Git have a different architecture. SVN is a centralized architecture, and Git is a distributed architecture. And the impacts can be really substantial. If we look at the centralized architecture, we have a centralized repository where everyone is going to share its work. So on each developer computer, each one has a working copy. This is one revision of the entire repository. If we look at the, so when you make a commit, data is sent to the centralized repository. With the distributed architecture, the difference is each developer has its own local copy of the repository. So if we look at the commit command, it's just writing the commit in the local repository. You need another command to synchronize your local repository with the remote repository. So if we look at the routines, with SVN, we do a simple commit, and with Git, we need to stage the changes, commit, this is a local operation, and push, this is the synchronization of your local repository and the remote repository. So it could seem more complicated, but in my opinion, it's powerful, because if we look and compare the two architecture, when you don't have access to the network and you don't have access to the remote repository and the centralized repository, what you can do with SVN in your computer, it's just knowing the status of your working copy. Do I have changes between the last time I update and the modification I made on my computer? But if I don't have access to the centralized repository, I can see the history of the commit. I can't revert to any other revision. I can't branch, I can't do nothing. If I compare with Git, as we have a local repository, we can continue to commit, we can continue to change the revision we are working on, we can access the history of the commit. The only thing we can't do is synchronizing the remote repository. So just it's something that can happen to don't have access to the network, and with Git you can continue to work and have a commit actions really straightforward and really accurate with what you are doing with your code. With SVN, if you spend one day without the network, without access to your repository, you are going to have a big one commit with everything in it, and it's kind of not usable way to work. That being said, I talk about new features, and there's a lot of features in Git, and I don't have time to speak about every one of this, but I'd like to talk about amend feature and stash feature.
Just before, there is a quick question on the chat. What is the purpose of staging?
Staging, if I get back to this slide, the staging is really a thing that helps you to have mindful commit. So in your commit, you only add the files and changes, etc., that are relied to your commit. So imagine you have 5 or 6 different file modified in your working copy, and you know that 3 of these files are modified because you have add a feature. You can take these three files, stage them, and commit with a mindful message, and after that do another commit with another message for the other changes. And I know that with SVN you can do that, but Git is really it's really part of the process and the command of Git. So you need to think more about that. With my experience, it helped me to make mindful commits. Hope this is enough for this question. So so the amend feature and command, and it's related to the commit, because the amend command allows you to rewrite the last commit you made. So this is usual to miss or forget to add a file, or to forget to save an LabVIEW, and you already did the commit. If you want to rewrite this commit, change the commit message, you can use amend command, and with this you get a commit history with with a better history. You don't have the famous commit with I made this commit just to add the file I forget to add in the previous commit. And I'm sure it's already happened to everyone here. The stash command is another useful command. Let me give you an example. You are working on a feature, and a colleague of you came asking asking to you to make a quick modification of the code, and your modification are not in a state you can commit. So you can use the stash command to stash the modification in your working copy, work on the modification excuse me, work on the modification you need to make quickly, commit them, and then reapply the stash to continue to work on what you were going to do. So it's really useful. On the next slides, I'm going to speak about a really important and different way Git is working compared to SVN. So this is the branching system. Git rely on the branching model, and this is something really different from SVN. And creating, merging, switching, deleting are really simple and fast action to make with Git. And that means that you can use the branch to work. You can switch from one branch to another branch really easily. You can define rules for branches, so it can help you to reinforce your process. You can create branches for experimentation, and this one is really great and really easy to use, because if you want, for example, if you want to try something, you know that this experimentation is going to take you 1 or 2 hours of development. You just create a branch locally, you work on it using your commit, so you can restore some code during your experimentation. And if at the end the experimentation works, you simply merge your work in your development branch. Or if it's not working, you just forget and delete the branch. It's really easy and simple, and you can use the Git feature during your experimentation. It's really great. And this is something, the branching system, this is something really important to understand, because Git provides you this branching system, but it's not going to tell you how you need to use the branch, when you need to start a branch, when you need to merge your branch, when you need to delete it. So you need to define a workflow before starting with Git. And your team, the team that work on the project, need to agree this workflow, because if anyone do anything, it's not going to work. So going back to the poll I created 6 months ago, I was asking which workflow was used. And if we look at the Git users, there were 3 main workflow. And the interesting thing is none of this workflow was really more used than another. So Git flow, centralized, and feature branch workflow, for example, apply for different way to work on your LabVIEW project. The last point I want to draw your attention to is the pink bar. This is the reply I get. It's more than 10% of the replies was, I don't really know which workflow I'm using. So it's really important with Git, much more than with SVN, to know how you are going to use Git and which workflow you are using. So in the next slides, I want to review with you different workflow you can use and that can help you to find your own workflow. The first one is the centralized workflow. This is quite the same that you can use with SVN. You have one branch. Every commit are made on this branch, and if you want to put a tag on a specific commit to, for example, to know which commit is the one the 1.0.0 version of your project has been built, you can tag the commit. So this is really a simple workflow. Another workflow is the feature branch. And this workflow, you are going to create a branch for any feature you are going to add. And when the feature is finished, so you can commit on this branch, and at the end, you are merging the branch into the master branch. With this workflow, the master branch contains only commits with feature developed. So master branch should be working at any point of the branch. Another workflow is the Git flow. It's a well-known workflow, and this is a workflow that uses mainly the roles of the branch. The master branch here only contains the released version of your application. So you are not working on the master branch. The develop branch here is the branch where you are going to start any other branches. So if you need to add a feature, you are going to start a feature from develop, make your modification, and merge into develop. Each time you are starting a feature, you start it from the develop. When it comes to release a version of your product or of your project, you are going to start a release. Start release is creating another branch where you are going to make a few changes, like bumping up the version number of your application, writing your changelog, etc. And when the XE is built, you are going to finish the release, and it's going to merge the branch into master, merge back into develop, and tag your commits in the master branch. This is something that could look complicated, but you need to know that Git flow comes with useful tools that allow you to make all this operation in a few clicks, in a few commands. If we look at the finish release, for example, you just have to say finish release, and it's going to merge into master, merge back into develop, create the tag, and delete the release branch. This is 4 different Git commands done with only one command. Last workflow I want to talk about is the pull merge request. Pull request or merge request. This is the same. This is a different word for the same thing. With this workflow, you are going to delegate the merging operation to someone else in your team. So this is really interesting if you want to review the code or be sure that some tests are made before merging into the develop branch. That being said, at the end of my journey, I need to find the right tool to work with Git, because Git is a command line tool. And if you look at the web, you are going to see a lot of command line. But we are LabVIEW developer, and we don't really like command line, I think. So we need to find a user interface to use Git. Tortoise Git is something that many people that start this journey are using, because it's like Tortoise SVN. But in my opinion, it's not the right thing to use, the right tool to use, because it's too much identical with Tortoise SVN, and you are not going to see the real differences between SVN and Git. So I will not recommend you to use it. The four last tool here are tools you can use and that allow you to interact with Git with a user interface. After 2 years testing different solution, the one I will recommend you is Fork. This is a one-time purchase application. It's less than $50, so it's not that much, and it's my 5-star application. If I show you some screenshots, you can see here the history of the commits with the graph showing you the different branches. If you want to commit changes, you need to select your changes, stage them, write a commit message, and then just hit the commit button, and you will find your commit in the history log.
Olivier, and maybe there is one question while you are on the commit slide, so if you can go. How do you see the commit actions of every users, and are all the other users see that commits and history when they pull the repository?
So yeah, perhaps it's more on this slide. Here you can see the different commits. So this is the history of the commit, and I'm the only one that commit on this project, but here you can see all the commits from any one in your team that can access to the remote repository. The only thing you have to do is to be synchronized with the remote repository, and you will see here the commit of any of the developer. And you have, when you select a commit, you can see the commit message, the files modified, added, or removed. You can get the changes, and you can also see the entire hierarchy of your working copy at this commit without reverting your working copy really. So you have a really fast access to anything in the history. So this is really useful, and you can just for one file revert one file from this selected commit to the actual working copy. Last thing I can show you, it's how you can start a feature branch with Git Flow. It's just one click, one right click, selecting an item, Git Flow, start feature, and writing the name of your feature, and it will create the branch and select and switch you to this branch, so that you can work on your source code. That's all for my journey, and I'd like to tell you where am I today with Git. So first thing to tell you is moving to Git requires a learning effort. Yes, you are moving from one tool you know to another one with some differences, and it's going to need some effort to learn. But for me, going out of my comfort zone makes me learn a lot of things, and with Git, it also makes me more productive. So this is something I will recommend you. Git is really, in my opinion, better than SVN. If we look at the differences, so obviously we use Git for all projects at Lab now. And everything I was doing with SVN, I can make it with Git now. Something I want to point you out is locking files. I know some of you are using this feature with SVN. In 10 years using SVN, I never used the locking file feature, but I know some people are using this feature, and is not a real possible way to use it with Git. At least it's not easy. So just to mention that. About the workflow, we for I think 95% of our projects we use Gitflow because it works very well with application you release with a version number like V110. It's working really really well, and it's Gitflow and Git workflow in general reinforce your development process. You will see that it's following your process, and it's help you to follow them. And for the use case where Gitflow is not the right workflow, Git is agile enough to fit with any different context. So this is something really important to know too. There's no one workflow that works for everything. I also told you that Git could be a way to access other services, and in my real life, and it wasn't just an expectation, but it's really happened. Using Git allowed me to work on open source projects. So I created 2 open source projects, and Antidoc and ASCII-Doc toolkit for LabVIEW. And I also contribute to some other open source projects. And the second thing really invaluable for me and for our lab is that using Git allow us to implement a successful and efficient continuous integration process for all of our projects. And this is really invaluable, and this is something we will never succeed to do with SVN, or at least never with this speed and this successful way to do. Last part of my presentation is my advice for this journey. If you want to start this journey, if you are in the process and you have some troubles, my first advice is you need to understand the distributed architecture impacts. So when you make a commit, it's local, it's not shared with the others. And when you push, you have a synchronization with the remote repository. It's really important to understand that. And it's really important to understand that if you rewrite the commit history with the amend function, for example, you need to be sure that you don't push the commit before, because you are going to rewrite something already shared, and it can lead to headaches to figure out what can happen with this. So there's a lot of power with Git, and so you need to have to act with responsibility. Another really important point is to define your workflow. You need to have a workflow. Whatever the workflow is, you need to be agree in your team on the workflow you use. You have some ideas here. We reviewed some well-known workflow. So if you want to mimic SVN trunk, use the centralized workflow. If you are building software that are explicitly version, use the Git flow workflow. It's really good for this situation. And if you are collaborating on open source project, you are going to use merge request, but it could be also useful if you have a strong code review process in your team. Using merge request is really interesting. This slide is true for whatever version control system you use, the commit rules. And here I like to quote Fabiola de la Cueva because doing good commits, it's being kind to your future you. The commit history is really useful when you have an issue. So what are the commit rules for me? You need to commit often. And with Git, it's really easy to commit often because when you commit, it's local, so you can do everything. It's not going to mess up something with the other developer. So commit often, add a clear message, explain what and why you are committing, and not how the how of the commit is in the files you are committing. You are looking at the code. Your commit needs to be cohesive. So if you need to add a feature and refactor your code, you make a commit about the modification you made for adding the feature, and you make another commit or much more commit on the refactoring thing. So this is where the staging area is really useful to get a cohesive commits. And it's also useful for getting mindful commits. And when I say mindful, you need to commit only the file you have voluntarily modified. And on this last point, if you want to avoid to get more file change than you have really modified, use the separate compiled file code from file option. It's really useful for this. What about the repository content? One thing. Yes.
Olivier, we've got a question from Matthias. It's related to commit rules, I guess. Do you have push rules? Or how often do you push? Do you have a rule of thumb?
Okay, it's a great question. I don't have a rule about the frequency of the push. In my opinion, the push needs to be triggered when you need to share something with other people in your team, or when you want to back up on the repository, the remote repository, your modification. But you can work a day long making commits locally and push at the end of the day, as soon as your architecture allow you to work like this. But I will talk about that later. So commit often, push when it's needed. About the repository content, avoid to track your config file in your working copy, because any developer can modify this config file, and it will give you some conflict. So you can avoid them ignoring these files, and also without the build artifact. So there are two different things to do here with Git, is using the .git ignore file to skip the folders and file you don't want to track. And for the build artifact, I recommend you to use a release server to keep this artifact stored. Detached AD, this is something I will not speak about too much, but this is a state you can come in, but this is a state where you can lose data if you don't understand what you are doing. So be careful when you are in this state. At least I have two last recommendations. If your version control system is not working, you are getting too much conflict. Probably it's because you are not building not enough modular architecture. So give a glance at your architecture if you have a lot of conflict, and you need to talk. There's no way a version control system can replace communication within your development team. So you need to know what your colleague is going to do during the day. You need to know which branch is created, etc., etc. Talk. This is something really important during your development process. At the end, if you want to travel from SVN to Git, I list here some useful link, my travel guides. You can look after if you want to move from SVN to Git. And probably if you want to travel, sometimes it's easier if you start your journey with a guide. So if you want to Mobile Lab help you, just reach out to us, and we will be happy to help you in the process. That's all for my presentation. Thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, we'll be happy to reply. I think we have 10 minutes, 5 minutes for questions. Cyril?
Yes, there are a few questions. How do you handle renaming with Git?
Renaming of a file?
Yep.
It's handled quite good with Git. So he can see if there are similar things really identical on the file, and he knows how when a rename is done. I didn't have any issue with renaming at this time so far.
Okay, we've got another question. Actually, several people mentioned that they do partial checkout with SVN, so they only check out or update one folder into their repository. Is there a way to do this in Git?
Yeah, with SVN, you are going to check out one folder. It could be the root folder of your SVN repository, and it could be just the one folder into the entire hierarchy of your repository on SVN. I think with Git, you are still going to clone the entire repository, but you can switch from one commit to another one really easily. And I'm not aware of a way to clone a repository not starting at the root directory. And I would say that it's not possible, but I'm not sure it's useful because I was used to do this partial checkouts with SVN, because when you want to deal with tag and branches in SVN, you are creating under the hood, you are creating a directory where you are going to put this tag or this branch. This is not working like this in Git. When you tag something, this is a tag on a commit. So Git knows that the tag is related to these files. When you branch something behind the scene, this is a database. So Git is know where is the branch. Each commit has his ancestor commit, so you can rebuild all the branch. So I think this is something that is not needed with Git.
Okay, in fact, we've got another question from Neil. Neil often has to deal with detached heads. Do you have some advices to avoid having detached heads or resolving them?
Yes, you have a detached head when you are when you make a checkout of a specific commit. If I let me just show you.
Fabiola lets me know that you maybe have 2 minutes to talk about this.
Okay.
And okay, so don't be too long.
Just with fork, there's a really easy way to have a detached head. If you are in your commit history, if you double click on the one commit, you are going to be in a detached head state because you are checkouting the specific commit. When you work with branches, you check out a branch. This is specific to a branch, and with this checkout, any commit is going to move the tag of the branch at the tip of your branch. And when you double click on a specific commit, this is not really relying on a branch tag. And if you end up with a detached head status, just check out the branch. Here you are just double clicking on any branch you want, and it's going to lead you to a normal checkout. And the thing with detached head is you must not commit from a detached head commit, because it's not relying to any ancestor commit, and so you are losing, or you can retrieve this this commit, but it's more difficult. So the rule is you can be in detached head, but don't commit from a detached head status. And if you are in a detached head status, just check out a branch, and everything will be good. And if you made some modification on the detached head checkout commit, just stash your modification, check out the branch, and reapply the stash, and everything will be okay. I think we are over time.
it's time to end the session, I guess. Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for your time and your questions. I think we will have some. If you have other questions, I think I will be available during the GIL summit if you want to ask more questions, if you want to discuss with me. Hi, Fab. You are mute.
We don't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can also continue the conversation at the breakout room. There's a breakout room with the same color as the session track. So,
yes, but I need to participate to another session about documentation just before this. So if you want to switch to my other session, feel free to come. I will be happy to talk about documentation.
Yeah, but if anybody wants to continue the conversation on source code control, they can do it at the breakout room.
Yes, obviously. Thank you, Fab.
Thank you so much, Olivier. It was a great job. Thank you, Cyril, for herding cats.
You're welcome.